the key to harmony.
Good day and welcome back to Health Focus with Value Life Dieticians, your go-to space for real talk on health, wellness and everything in between. My name is Yolinda Dippenaar, a registered dietitian with Value Life Centurion. Today's topic oftentimes gets overlooked but has a deep connection with our overall well-being, and that is learning disabilities and impairments within children. Whether it's nutrition or emotional support or access to the right resources, all the elements of a child's development matters. Joining us today is Elizna, that is going to help us to unpack the difference between learning disabilities and learning impairments and help our parents to help their children. Elizna, welcome here with us. Can you tell us a little bit more about your occupation?
Yolinda, I'm a remedial therapist and educational counsellor. And what I'm basically doing is I'm working with children with learning disabilities and learning hindrances. And that will include children with dyslexia, children with ADHD, ADD, autism spectrum disorder, Asperger's spectrum disorder. Then in general, reading problems, spelling problems in both languages, Afrikaans and English, reading speed, mathematical concepts, and the remediation thereof. And then I also do some referrals, to different doctors, dieticians, neurologists, pediatricians, occupational therapists, speech therapists, everyone that's connected with kids and is working with kids, even some of the ENTs in Centurion and Pretoria.
Elizna, let's start at the beginning. Tell me, what is the difference between a learning disability and a learning impairment?
Well, there's quite a difference between the two. Okay. A learning disability is exactly what the word tells you. Okay. This child has got, is not capable. Let me put it like that. It's not capable of doing a specific thing, and it's a hindrance in the body. It can't be solved in any way. Okay. It's usually things where you look at at brain damage, or when a child's been born, can't hear properly, a bit deaf on the one side of one ear, both ears, whatever. Maybe where you get something like when a child is blind, or something like dyslexia. Okay. Dyslexia is something that happens in the brain. There are people out there nowadays who's claiming that it can be fixed. It can't. It's a specific component in the brain that's not operating. It's a visual auditory kind of problem that they have. So it can't be fixed. Then you have your learning impairments. Okay. Those are problems that develop due to different circumstances and things. Maybe improper teaching in class, or rural backgrounds, with not enough exposure to reading material at home, not practicing enough. Sometimes you get things like tracking problems. Okay, tracking problems, even though it's something that happens in the body, it's fixable. Okay. Either by, wearing glasses, specific exercises, that kind of thing. So then it's an impairment. Then it's not a disability. Okay. Auditory processing problems, or it's not a disability, it's an impairment because you can fix it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Problems with B's and D's reversals, they can be fixed. Reading speed can be fixed. The understanding of mathematical problems, if a child doesn't have dyscalculia, can be fixed. Okay, there's many different things. But if you look at impairments, as I've said, they are fixable. The disabilities aren't fixable. And then under that category of disabilities, you will get things like ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, Asperger's spectrum disorder, autism, all of those kinds of things. A child being blind, a child being deaf, etc., etc. There are lots of those nowadays, and it seems that they've got quite an influence on lots of things in their child.
Okay, and then you'll have to teach your child to just deal with that or to overcome that. because
Yes.
it won't go away.
It won't go away. We have different ways of dealing with it. I always call it the little crutches. Teach them on how to deal with it. Now, we can also nowadays go to therapists, educational therapists in South Africa, and then we can apply for concessions at the Department of Education, to give this child the same play field as a normal child. Unfortunately, it's not always that easy to get those concessions. There's specific therapies that a parent will have to follow. If a child needs to be on medication, you can't just only go to your GP to prescribe the medication. It needs to be a neurologist or a neuropediatrician. There are many things that's all under the same umbrella. But that's basically the difference between a disability and an impairment.
Elizna, how will a parent know or recognize that his or her child has a learning disability or has a learning impairment?
You know what, Yolinda, it's a different scenario for each parent, okay? There's no generic recipe for that you can follow that works for every child, okay? Usually the mothers are very good at picking this up. They've got a gut feel about something.
Of course.
They know something is wrong, but they can't pinpoint it.
Yes.
In other cases, you will have a child which you can see. This child has got a disability, like a child with, say, for instance, a brain injury, or a child who's been born deaf or blind. Those things are easy to spot. But if you go and look at a child's schoolwork, you will, when you are involved in the schoolwork, you will pick up that a child maybe reads slowly, or maybe do reversals with a B or a D. They can't pronounce the words. They put certain words into the sentences, omissions, that aren't in the specific reading piece. You'll also pick up on spelling mistakes, sentence fluency when they are writing. Then there's your mathematical concepts, where a child, say for instance, when they are battling with long division, which is something that lots of kids are battling with, but especially the ones with the ADHD components, they tend not to be able to follow the longer pattern because sometimes the concentration span isn't there. Then more abstract concepts like fractions, decimal fractions, those things are problematic for lots of kids. Then the children with dyslexia. Lots of times they battle to learn a second language because language is already a problem to them. Other kids won't be able to follow commands. Hear what mommy is saying, be able to repeat 2 or 3 or 4 things, or can't see on the board. My own child had a problem in grade 1 that I've picked up on. He was, at the age of 4, he wanted to start reading. And at that point in time, I felt, no, what? He's a child, he needs to play. That's more important for him at that point in time. And then when he got to grade 1, he wanted to read. But the moment that he had the book in front of him, he started tilting his head.
Okay.
And I was very concerned about it because it was abnormal for him. He didn't do that previously.
Yes.
So immediately I found a specific optometrist, whom I usually send people to for consultations, etc., etc. And we went there, and he developed astigmatism.
Okay.
And astigmatism is something that runs from both sides of the family. So it actually would have happened in any case. But if I wasn't involved in his schoolwork, if he was maybe someone else who didn't know how to pick that up, it would have been a major problem. And it could have been, it could have had emotional implications.
Okay. So it's so important for mommy or daddy then to actually look at the schoolwork, look at the books. What does the teachers write down there? And actually maybe just sit down and, if they are very small, build that puzzle with them or read that book for them.
It's very, very, very important. You know what? Lots of times these kids slip through the fingers because of parents who aren't involved. Something else that's quite common nowadays in our schools is the children who comes from a third language background. Lots of times we do not have teachers in the schools, in high schools specifically anymore, who's teaching Sepedi or Zulu, Xhosa, one of those languages. And then these kids need to start, doing Afrikaans as a second language from grade 8 and onwards. And then they simply do not have the vocabulary to do so, because lots of times mum and dad can't speak Afrikaans at home. But according to our school system, they have to have a second language. And there's Afrikaans teachers who are trained, so then eventually they need to go there. So if your child can't communicate in any language, you've got a problem.
Well, communication is key to anything.
It's key to anything. And that's where it's up to. Nowadays, you know what, a couple of years ago, when my child was small, the doctor said to me, why don't you send him to a nursery school at the age of 1? I said, no, that's not going to work, because this child needs to learn to bond with mummy up to the age of 3. Otherwise, we might have attachment problems later on in life. And his language development isn't going to be on par.
Okay.
Due to the fact that the children learn from one another. They learn the language. Okay?
Yes.
They listen to what the other child is saying, and now I'm repeating it.
Of course.
But that little one has got the same kind of language development that my child's got. So what's the chances that this child's language development will be on par if I'm sending him to be among a lot of kids all the time? He needs a mum. There's specific ways in which you teach a child different concepts at home when you're talking to your child.
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
So at what age do the children start looking at social development? When must he begin to actually have playmates and play with other kids?
You know what, there's different forms of play that you get among the toddlers, etc., and it differs from one age group to another. If you go and talk to your play therapists, most of the time they recommend for children to go to nursery school from the age of 4, which is exactly what I did with mine. And I was in the fortunate position to be a stay-at-home mum in the mornings. Okay. I was only at the practice in the afternoons.
Okay.
And then when I was at the practice, I took him along to the office, and he was actually there since he's been a very small baby at the age of 3 months. He grew up in the office.
Okay.
And his language development was very good due to the fact that he heard both languages in the office, and that the two of us, we were always together. So when I was talking, he was picking it up. And you can listen today. He's quite a talkative one, but he likes communicating in languages, both of them, because the language development was on par.
But do you have any tips for a mommy that really can't be there? At 3 months, she has to go back to work. Any tips for that mommy?
Yeah, there's lots of things that you can look into. Okay. First of all, I would say, the moment that you are available, have your child close to you. And whenever you are talking about something, say for instance, you are taking a cup out of the cupboard. I want you to take out the cup and say, for instance, it's a white cup. And then you say, okay, Mummy's taking out a white cup now. Do you see? This is a white cup. Mm. So immediately this child sees, listen, this is a cup, this is the vocabulary, this is the color, this is white. Even if you're busy prepping food, okay, tell them, listen, this is a potato. Wow, can you smell the potato? Smell it for Mummy, okay? Let's count the potatoes. 1, 2, 3, and touch them, please, because that's the way numeracy develops. Okay. This child must be able, he must be part of the group. When you go and you look at a lioness, when she's lying there in the field, the cubs, are they wandering off all the time, or are they playing around the lioness? Yes. Mm. They are playing there. And that's exactly the kind of picture that you should have with your child. You're the mum. The child is here. While you are busy, the child is busy with you. And you are communicating constantly in full sentences, so this child can pick it up.
Okay.
Later on, when the child starts reading, we can start with incidental reading, and you can make little flashcards, put it onto your furniture. You know what, this is a chair, that's a table, that's the window. Your house will look like a Christmas tree, most necessarily, but the child eventually picks up on those words if he's got normal capabilities of picking up on it. My own child, I used him as a bit of an experiment because when I was in varsity, they taught us that we have to start to read to them very early in life. So every month I would buy him one educational toy and one story, okay, a book, a specific book.
Okay.
And he was, at the age of 2 months, I already started reading to him. People thought I was crazy, and I just ignored everyone. And I was reading to him, even if he was there in his crib or when we were laying on the bed or whatever, when we had the time to read a story, I read a story to him. And eventually that all added up to his language development. It became a habit. So in the evenings we would go to bed together and he would come and crawl in under the duvet with me. And then we would read a story. Okay. And I would use my fingers to, would follow the lines of the story in order to be able to exercise his eye muscles, the movement from left to right.
Okay.
There's so many things that you can do. It's all about, even though I've got the training to be able to do that, I still go and I read up consistently about what I need to do, what this child needs to be able to do at this point in time, life, the development milestones. All of those, they're wonderful information available out there. And a child you can be an involved mother with the small bit of time that you have.
Okay. All right. So now my child grows up a little bit. He's in, say, grade R or grade 1, and I get this feedback from the teacher. But now I don't know, from all these different therapists that you've named, which one should I start with? Because it's auditory processing. Is that for a speech therapist, or is it for occupational therapist, or is it for play therapist? Or if maybe my reading is not up to speed, must I go to a little group that helps my child read, or must I go through to whom must I go to help us?
That's quite a toughie, okay? You know what? There's different ways. There's different routes to follow. Lots of times, it's the best starting point would be to go to the educational psychologist and to get an educational psychologist to assess this child properly. Okay. You can ask for either a scholastic assessment or an emotional assessment, or both of them. It's always a better idea to do both of them to see, because the scholastic kind of work that they have to learn eventually has an emotional impact on them as well. One child will, say for instance, need an occupational therapist. Another child will need a speech therapist. Another child will need both of them. When you are doing the assessments with the educational psychologist, he or she will also be able to pick up on the concentration, whether that's on par. Then from there, if there's a concentration problem, you will have to go to a neuropediatrician or a neurologist. They are quite fully booked. Please don't go to your general practitioner and tell him to give your child the medication, because they aren't trained to do that. There's different things that you need to take into account. And it's very important that you go and follow the indications from the doctor's side in able to administer the medication properly. You can't just go and, I won't go and give my child poison if something is wrong. So why? Why would you do that when your child's got another problem? Okay. Then there's more aspects to the problem. You know what? If you're busy, years ago we had a child who had diabetes. So as a team of therapists, we had to work together with the endocrinologist. It was me, it was the occupational therapist, the speech therapist, endocrinologist, and the neuropediatrician. And we had to monitor this child every morning. We had to ask him, what did you eat? Okay, at what time did you eat? At what time did you take your tablet? Because lots of times the child's diet is also playing a major role in
Of course,
all of
yeah.
these. I always smile when I hear from the mummies that some of them will boast a bit and say, okay, the lunchbox costing me about 50 Rand a lunchbox every day, or sometimes up to 70 Rand. Then I take a look at the lunchbox, then I'll see, okay, it's all kinds of bags, little pockets, all kinds of things. It's chippies and sweeties and all of those things that aren't appropriate.
Yes.
Sugary soft drinks, those things, it's not good. Water, 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 water. That's the key word.
Yes.
You're a dietitian yourself. You will know what I'm talking about.
I do.
There's definitely different things. And when I see a child from my side, I have a questionnaire that I'm completing with parents.
Okay.
And we take a look at those. I go back into their old reports from the psychologists, the occupational therapists, their speech therapists, whatever's available. Because that gives me a very good idea of what I need to incorporate into this child's individual educational program. Sometimes even the doctor is clueless. Okay. Sometimes you have to go back into the parent's history. Things like ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, some of those illnesses develops from one generation to another. And you never know. Or maybe you just battled in school and no one has ever picked up on you that you've got ADD or ADHD or one of the others. And now you see, but listen, my child is doing the same. This is a problem now. I mean, all of these disciplines have developed over the last couple of years quite a lot. And then it's worth it, looking into it and saying, listen, where does this come from?
So what will happen if I just leave it? What will happen to my child in high school or even when he or she is an adult?
Okay. You know what? It's quite common among the South African community to try and postpone things.
Okay.
They will tell you at the beginning of the year, lots of parents will tell you, no, the teacher said we must first wait. After the first term, they'll be able to tell us something. But then sometimes the previous teacher already mentioned something. Now, mum and dad just thought that that wasn't a good teacher. Now, with the next teacher, my child will do better. Okay, that's a no-go. Because if the child ends up in therapy too late in life, it's going to have detrimental effects on them, especially emotionally. Okay. If you must remember, when a child is battling in school, he's at school for most of the day. And the moment that he's battling in class, friends are picking it up, the teachers are picking it up, someone will tell him, belittle him, bully him, all of those things. And it's got a negative impact on that child's emotional development, which eventually all the therapies just become more and more and more and more. These children are eventually, when some of these parents take them to therapy, they end up in so many forms of therapy that they do not cope with it. Okay, so the sooner you start, the better. If you know there's a sibling at home who's maybe he's got, say for instance, ADHD, there might be a chance that the second or the third child can also have it. So keep those things in mind. Know your family. Know what happened to grandma and grandpa. Know what happened to you in school. Check up on the nursery school teachers, because lots of times the children's development in nursery school isn't on par. And that leads to bigger perceptual, visual perceptual, and auditory perceptual problems. Remember, we've got a body. And for a child to be able to cope in school, the child's auditory system, the rest of the body, and the brain needs to work together as a team. And it needs to function properly. And once all of those are functioning together, then a child can be, experience success in school.
Okay. And have confidence. I think that's...
Have confidence, yeah.
Yeah, that's where it starts. If you can't cope in school, even if it's just a little bit, if you have that support from your mother or father or from a therapist just to build that confidence, then you can do it and then you can just move forward.
Most of the kids who end up with me has got a major problem with confidence. And then I usually introduce, a specific game where they can see their own development.
Okay.
And from one level to the other. It's actually some very good, to mind therapy kind of games.
Okay, practical is always good.
Practical, yeah. It's always good. And then they can see, that they are achieving something. And the self-esteem starts building up. There are many things. You can teach the parents many things. Reward charts, all of those kinds of things. There's things that I incorporate into the practice. But confidence is the major thing. If you think you can do something, you might most probably be able to do that.
Okay. Elizna, tell me, is there enough support in South African school systems to help these children?
Yolinda, it depends on how you look at it. Okay. If you compare the current situation to those that we had about 35 to 40 years ago, it's quite different, okay? Under the old system, we had your mainstream schools. Some of the schools had remedial qualified teachers on the premises. And then you had schools where they, say for instance, had a specific class where they could take the kids and catch up with them. Those teachers were specifically trained for it, etc.
Yes.
We also had remedial schools, and we had the special needs schools, the LSEN schools. Now, lots of them do not exist anymore, unfortunately. Some of them still does, but they're also very full.
Yes.
There's quite a list of children who need to go there. Lots of teachers aren't trained in the field anymore. There's only a few of us. At some point, the universities didn't train people in those fields anymore.
Okay.
And so it becomes a major problem for the system. If you compare it to some of the countries in Europe, they've got a totally different ballgame to play. They've got nurses available, small classes. Some of the European countries even provide the parents with funds to be able to help this child. So yes, we do not have a very good system at the moment, unfortunately. But then, on the other hand, you have more people who's trained, like occupational therapists and speech therapists. Previously, we didn't have that big amount of therapists available. Unfortunately, it becomes a very expensive situation.
Yes.
Okay. A parent can easily, all of these therapies, together with medication, which aren't always paid by the medical aids, etc., can cost a parent about 10,000 rand a month extra, apart from the school fees. Okay. If you go into the assessments, some of the medical aids do not pay for the assessments anymore. Sometimes the therapy, the funds from the medical aid ran out by the time that you have to start with the therapy. So it's a major problem for parents to get to help their children.
Of course, yeah.
And if you just take a look at what's the price of glasses nowadays, anything from 4,000 up to 12,000 rand. If you take a look at hearing pieces, etc., 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 I can give you lots of examples. It's really, really, really very expensive for a parent to deal with these kinds of things.
Elizna, we always end with something practical. So if I maybe can give an example of a problem, can you maybe just give us practical nuggets to how to help that mother or father when, for instance, let's say my child is using a B and a D interchangeably? What should I do?
Okay, there's different reasons for it. Okay, let's first start with that. Lots of times there's a big buzzword that they use for it, and they say, okay, now my child's got dyslexia. Okay, that's a very ordinary thing. People, it's not necessarily dyslexia. Okay. Dyslexia is just like ADHD. People use it too easily to describe something. Okay. A B and D reversal can be a laterality problem in the body that the child hasn't discovered the left and the right hand side of the body yet. They haven't crossed the midline, all of those kinds of things it can be. It can even be an eye problem. If the two eyes aren't tracking together, you sometimes get that they switch it around. Okay. So there's many things that you can do. I know a person who's an adult today, and she still needs to think that her left hand, or the arm, is got her watch on it, and then the right hand side is different. Then I also have a trick where you take your hands, and I always call it, this is, if the child is left-handed, this will be his best hand, okay? If the child is right-handed, this one will be his best hand, and then you have to swap. But you take the hand like this, okay? This is B for best hand. So then I draw, take one of those thick black Cokie pens, and I draw the B for best hand on it, and then the D for dumb hand on it. Okay. Then they can just do this, and immediately they see, okay, this is the B and this is the D. It's a very common one. Then you also have a picture of a bed where you have the B and the D. So the moment that it's right, the little man can lie on the bed. But when it's the other way around, he can't lie on the bed. Okay, there's different things. So, for instance, when you are doing those things, I will usually use sidewalk chalk. You draw it on the cement or on the carpet or whatever. Luckily, you can get rid of it again. And then the child needs to walk on it. There's so many things that you can do with a child. It all starts with experience in the body. Okay. The children needs to move. That's the main thing. They are not supposed to sit in front of the TV. I'm not supposed to sit with the cell phones or the computers all the time. They must be out there and they have to play. There's a specific reason why the dear Lord has created us the way we are. Okay. And it was definitely not to sit in front of screens.
Yes.
We can talk about that for ages. But that's just one example. But you know what, sometimes I do, if a parent contacts me, and then I do some free consultations and things, pro bonos, and then I will go into a child's history and then point out some resources or specific routes that the parent can follow. That's much cheaper if it's appropriate for that specific child.
Yes.
You can't do it with every kind of child, or every child then. Every child is different. There's no generic program when a child gets stuck when it comes to schoolwork. Okay? There's lots of things on the market. But eventually, every child needs an IEP.
Elizna, thank you so much for our conversation. I'm sure that it brings a lot of comfort and clarity for so many parents.
I'm looking forward to hearing from them. And please give me a shout if you need me again, or if a parent needs some free advice. I'm a phone call away. We can drink a cup of tea and we can put you on the right route for your child. It's worth it. Every child's got a future. Remember that.
Just a reminder to our viewers, when we think about learning and development, we mustn't forget about nutrition. A well-fed brain is a well-functioning brain. Balanced meals, rich in essential fatty acids, iron and B vitamins can support cognition, concentration and emotional balance. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Until then, remember every child deserves a chance to learn and to thrive. And understanding their unique needs is the very first step.